The rain begins in October and does not stop until April. 6 months of water falling from low clouds that never break. The forest floor never dries. Moss grows on moss. Wood left on the ground dissolves into the earth within a season. Everything exposed to the air turns slick with moisture, then soft, then gone. Yet here, in this drowned landscape stretched along the Pacific coast, from Alaska to Northern California, indigenous peoples built structures that stood for generations. Not temporary shelters, not crude lean-tos patched together from bark and branch. These were buildings among the largest in pre-contact North America, some measuring 40 feet wide and over 100 feet long. Houses that held extended families of 50 people or more. Houses filled with tons of dried salmon, carved cedar boxes, ceremonial regalia, tools, and wealth accumulated over lifetimes. Houses that could not afford to fail, because everything inside them would rot within days if water found its way in. The question was never whether the rain would come. The rain always came. The question was how to build something permanent when the environment destroyed permanence as its fundamental operating principle. And the answer lay in a single tree. The Kwakwaka'wakwa called it the tree of life. Western red cedar grew straight and tall in the coastal forests, some specimens reaching 200 feet with trunks 10 feet across. But size alone did not make it valuable. Cedar possessed a property that transformed the calculus of survival in a saturated world. The wood itself resisted rot. The resistance came from chemistry, not structure. Cedar wood is saturated with natural essential oils, aromatic compounds the tree produces as a defense mechanism. These oils repel the organisms that thrive in constant moisture, the fungi that break down cellulose, the bacteria that colonize damp surfaces, the insects that burrow into softened wood. A plank of cedar exposed to rain does not decay the way other woods do. It weathers, it grays, but it holds its integrity for decades, sometimes centuries, while the forest floor churns through everything else in years. This passive biological defense meant that a house built from cedar required far less maintenance than any alternative. There was no need for constant replacement of rotted boards, no annual recoating with preservatives that did not exist. The material defended itself, year after year, against the very conditions that defined the climate. But having rot-resistant wood solved only the first problem. The second was obtaining it in the quantities required for monumental architecture without the use of metal tools. Cedar's grain structure made this possible. Unlike many hardwoods, which grow with twisted grain patterns and dense knots, cedar grows remarkably straight, with minimal branching low on the trunk. This means the wood can be split along its grain rather than cut across it. Splitting requires force and precision, but not the continuous abrasive cutting action of a saw. It works with the wood's internal structure rather than against it. The technique was exact. Craftsmen used wedges carved from yew wood, a dense, fine-grained species that could take repeated impacts without fracturing. The wedges were often hardened by scorching their surfaces over fire, creating a tougher outer layer. To cushion the blows and prevent the wedge from splitting under impact, twisted cedar bark was bound to the top. The striking tool was a maul made from stone or carved from antler. A harvester would select a section of the trunk, then drive the first wedge into the end grain, starting a fracture. Additional wedges were inserted along the propagating split, each blow forcing the crack to travel deeper into the wood. If done correctly, the fracture followed the grain perfectly, separating a plank 4 to 6 inches thick and as long as the log itself. The cut ends were finished with an adze, a hand tool with a curved blade that could smooth the surface and remove rough edges. This method allowed the extraction of massive planks from a log, or even from a living tree. Some harvesters practiced live planking, removing only a vertical section of the trunk while leaving the tree standing. The tree would continue to grow, its cambium layer slowly healing the wound. These scarred specimens, called culturally modified trees, still stand in Pacific Northwest forests today. Silent markers of a harvesting tradition that operated within the regenerative capacity of the forest, rather than beyond it. The spiritual framework reinforced this restraint.